Soft candlelight flickers against cool stone as evening settles over your room. Imagine for a moment a long, echoing corridor inside an ancient English fortress. The torches glow low, walls breathe a faint chill, and somewhere distant, a chapel bell tolls only once, then drifts into silence. Tonight we will walk, ever so slowly, into that hush, back to the late 14th century, to meet a king whose crown once gleamed brightly and then faded in the shadowed halls of Pontefract Castle. Have you ever wondered how a monarch falls from such height to such hush? What quiet thoughts might tiptoe through a royal mind when the crown is lifted away? As you settle deeper into blankets, allow each question to open gently like a parchment page, revealing soft edges of history, mellow and unhurried. We will let the story unfold in calm, measured breaths. No sudden turns, no jarring drums, only the steady murmur of past voices and the tender glow of memory. Let us begin calmly and carefully with Richard of Bordeaux, born beneath southern skies but destined to rule beneath England's cloud-washed heavens. His tale drifts like candle smoke, rising, curling, then thinning into quiet night. Close your eyes if you wish. Hear the low rustle of velvet, the slow creak of a castle door, the gentle heartbeat of distant footsteps on worn stairs. Together, we'll wander softly through chambers of time, learning without strain, resting without hurry, until at last the candles gutter low and only peace remains. Richard was born on 6th of January 1367 in Bordeaux, a city of mild sea winds and sun-dappled vineyards. His cradle stood beneath carved beams, surrounded by the scent of polished cedar and sweet beeswax. Nurses in woolen gowns sang lullabies that drifted like mist through shuttered windows. Outside, cyan waves nuzzled the harbor stones, unaware that inside rested England's future sovereign. The boy's father, Edward, the Black Prince, wore battle-scarred armor. His mother, Joan of Kent, favored soft damask shot with silver. Richard, however, grew amid gentle courtiers and prayerful tutors. At Windsor Castle, he toddled across reed-strewn rushes, his small feet brushing against petals strewn to freshen the great hall. When he was crowned at the tender age of 10, the crown itself felt broad and heavy, a circle of gold filigree resting on flaxen hair still scented faintly of lavender oil. He loved robes dyed in quiet hues, muted rose trimmed with white ermine, pale green lined with fur from the north. In winter, he wrapped himself in thick scarlet velvet. In summer, he preferred airy silks that whispered when he moved. Chroniclers recall his fondness for mirrored walls and tall windows, so sunlight could dance patiently across jeweled rings and polished buckles. He surrounded himself with musicians plucking lutes in soft cadences, repeating lilting phrases until sound dissolved into calm. While other kings sharpened swords, Richard polished etiquette. He introduced careful bowing, low, graceful, repeated. He insisted that supplicants approach on hushed feet and speak in measured tones. Ceremony soothed him like a lullaby, each movement predictable and slow, an unbroken tide of politeness washing over restless courtly spirits. For those near him, life felt like a perpetual twilight procession, lit by beeswax tapers and guided by the gentle rustle of brocade. Yet beneath this silken quiet lay the weight of royal duty, a crown pressing softly yet steadily upon young brows. In those early years, Richard seemed less a warlord than a dreamer king, drifting through corridors scented with franking incense, listening to the steady drip of chapel candles and the distant sigh of choir voices fading into nave and night. Among all English monarchs, Richard's attachment to splendid ritual was perhaps the most delicate thread woven through his reign. He cultivated an almost sleepy devotion to opulence, not the loud clamor of feasts, but a hushed, glowing pageantry designed to soothe the senses. Picture a summer afternoon in 1390. In Westminster Hall, sunlight filters through tall lancet windows, turning airborne dust to drifting fireflies. Richard enters, robed in fabric of cloth of gold so supple it falls in long, gentle folds. He moves slowly, almost reverently, so that every stitch might catch the light. Pages step behind him, bearing a long train edged with tiny bells no louder than rain against a window. Courtiers must bow from the waist, rising only when a herald's low flute signals permission. Richard's courtly heartbeat, pulsing softly through the hall. He adopted a personal emblem, the White Hart, gently crowned, its chain loose, its posture restful. That emblem appeared everywhere, embroidered on cushions, stitched into gowns, even painted on the wooden panniers of royal horses. Richard decreed that attendants wear badges of the heart during processions, their tunics displaying the pale creature bounding silently over green ground. It was less a command than a lullaby for the eyes, a repeating pattern, a calming presence, white against muted cloth. Meals, too, followed tranquil rhythms. At supper, the king sat beneath a golden canopy that rippled softly in lamplight. Dishes arrived in quiet order, stew of capon scented with sage, then honey-glazed pears, then rosewater wafers. Nothing clattered, nothing stirred the still air. Even the musicians plucked only gentle chords, repeating themes until conversation slowed to whispers. Visitors described Richard's travel tents as pavilions of silk lined with embroidered constellations. Inside, braziers cast soft heat, and censers released thin threads of sandalwood. Ritual after ritual unfolded, the slow lighting of candles, the measured pouring of wine, the silent arrangement of cushions. And all the while Richard spoke little, listening to the mild crackle of the brazier and the distant hoot of an owl. This dreamy splendor, though captivating, weighed heavily on England's purse and on the patience of nobles accustomed to sturdier fare. But Richard drifted on, as though each echoing coin rang only a quiet chime in some greater symphony of serenity. He believed, perhaps, that magnificence could gentle hearts, that golden cloth could muffle discord. Thus he wrapped his reign, night after night, in bright yet solemn ritual, a cloak of gleaming calm meant to hush the realm. And yet, like candle wax pooling too near a flame, excess slowly softened the foundation beneath his throne. The hush could not last. By 1399, grievances settled over England like slow-moving fog. Taxes trickled away into pageantry. Lords murmured in dim halls, the treasury's echo grew hollow. Henry of Bolingbroke, cousin to the king, returned from exile with measured steps and a quiet promise to restore order. There were no crashing gates in London, no thunder of siege. Instead, supporters drifted to Henry's banner like weary birds seeking still branches. Richard, away in Ireland, crossed back to Wales and then surrendered with an almost whispered resignation. Witnesses recall no heroic outburst, only a weary monarch handing over his seal in the soft drizzle of late summer. In Westminster Hall, once bright with embroidered hearts, the assembly accepted Richard's abdication. Candles trembled, parchment crackled, voices remained low. The crown that had gleamed on airy silks now lay on a plain altar cloth, its jewels paling in the gray daylight. Conveyed to Pontefract Castle in Yorkshire, Richard entered quarters of cool stone and narrow light. There, wind sighed through arrow slits and footsteps echoed off damp flagstones. Each day passed in quiet sameness. A bowl of bread broth, a pitcher of water, the monotony of straw bedding. Outside, guards paced in muted rhythm. Inside, the former king listened to their boots clicking faintly, counting each pass as though it were a slow metronome for fading memories. In February 1400, the sounds finally stopped. Chroniclers differ. Some say starvation, others murmur of gentle suffocation, but all agree the end came softly, without battle cry or clash of steel. A candle burning low, a breath turning shallow, and then only stillness where once golden processions flowed. Richard's strange calmness had followed him to the very edge of life, guiding him into darkness like a lullaby fading into silence. Henry IV ordered the body brought south. It traveled under simple drapery, escorted by monks reciting psalms in subdued voices. At first, the coffin rested in the church at King's Langley, Hertfordshire. There it lay for years, almost forgotten, candles burning low on winter evenings while dust settled like thin snow upon the lid. In 1413, Henry V, seeking to mend fractured memories, moved Richard to Westminster Abbey. There, beneath high arches where his mirrored feasts once unfolded, the former king found final stillness. A carved effigy was placed above him, serene face, eyes closed, palms folded as though in perpetual midnight prayer. Visitors rarely hurried by. Instead, they paused, heads bowed, listening to the gentle hush of choir echoes drifting through the nave. The White Hart emblem, once everywhere, quietly receded. Badges were tucked into chests, pageantry rules repealed. Yet now and then a stone boss in a chapel ceiling would reveal the pale deer still bounding, untouched by time. As for Pontefract Castle, ivy climbed its quiet walls. Wind traced Richard's last footsteps across the ward, scattering leaves where royal shoes once moved with measured grace. Even today, if you visit at dusk, you might hear only the soft sigh of wind through empty windows and the flutter of a lone bat, wing beats, gentle as a heartbeat sinking into sleep. So ends the low-lit tale of Richard II, the king whose reign unfolded like a slow procession of candle flames and velvet shadows. He rose beneath southern stars, ruled beneath tapestries of gold, and slipped away behind gray Yorkshire walls, an echo fading into stone. As you rest now, remember how softly history can speak. Crowns may glitter, laws may thunder, yet beneath it all lies a steady hush, the muted creak of floorboards, the patient swing of a chapel lamp, the silent drift of dust through sunbeams. Richard's journey reminds us that even in lives of splendor, evenings come when robes are set aside and only quiet remains. Allow your breath to settle like parchment upon a lectern, edges curling under gentle heat. Feel your eyelids grow heavy, mirroring those abbey candles guttering low beside Richard's effigy. The world beyond your window may bustle, but here, in this soft space of story, peace lingers like distant plainsong. May the echoes of vaulted ceilings guide you into dreams deep as velvet midnight. Rest well, traveler of tales, and let the whispers of forgotten kings cradle you through the night. Good night, and may your dreams be quiet tonight.